This is a scene from the new movie, Spawn. It features one of the hottest comic book characters in North America, brought to life by a Canadian visual effects specialist. He's a man who's already made a big name for himself in Hollywood, working on big movies like Terminator 2, The Mask, and Jurassic Park. And joining us now is the visual effects supervisor of Spawn, Spaz Williams. Good day to you, sir. Can we start with the character of Spawn and his creator, Todd McFarlane, another Canadian? How did you meet Todd? When did you first run into Spawn? Tell us that story.
Okay. I ran into Spawn after Jurassic. I was animation supervisor in Jurassic Park. I guess McFarlane saw it, and he was in negotiations with the company Columbia, to do Spawn, his character. And of course, you know, Todd being a Canadian maverick as well, didn't want to give up ownership of his character. So he went to New Line. And I had just started a relationship with New Line as a visual effects supervisor for The Mask. And they did very well by that. So Todd said, look, I want you and one of my other partners, Mark DePay, and another guy named Clint Goldman, to produce my movie Spawn for me. You know, very much in the same kind of, you know, effects-driven genre as Jurassic.
And how important was it to be true to the original concept of the characters? You know, the colors, the textures, the shapes of McFarlane's vision.
Well, you see, one of the problems is that two-dimensional character drawings or renderings don't necessarily translate that successfully to animated features like this. So we were a little nervous. A lot of stuff we had to change. The way McFarlane tends to draw characters such as the Violator he wouldn't stand up very well in 3D, simply because, as sort of a quick anatomical example, the width of his hips is an example. The length of his jaw is drawn so it looks like it would never close successfully. Right, so we had to make some modifications, obviously, to the way the character looked in 3D to make sure that I could make him run and grab people and you know, turn, you know, stuff of that nature. In terms of Spawn, Spawn was fairly accurate to the original, and one of the sort of signature things that happen with Todd's the cape, in the case of the way Todd draws it for Spawn, is it's sort of drawn as an alive entity. So an alive entity, as is drawing in the two-dimensional medium by Todd, is kind of very, very hard-edged corners and very sort of flat texture and stuff. So that looks quite interesting as a 2D, so this is the example. In 3D, it probably wouldn't translate so well, so we came up with sort of a whole new language of motion using a system called Dynamation, which is an Alias product. And so again, we use a lot of off-the-shelf software, you know, to do those types of things.
How many people in the entire world can do what Spaz Williams does?
How many people in the world? A lot more now. You know, like when I started out, I mean, I was the first animator at ILM, first Canadian at ILM. I was hired because I knew the system Alias. So I worked for the company Alias here in Toronto. That's how I started out. And you know, back then, you know, it was kind of a joke. I mean, I started by building and animating the T-Rex, or animating the Abyss, and that's kind of where everything took off at that point.
But you know, as you look at the list of movies that you've worked on, each movie gets bigger, gets more complicated, you have more effects, you push the boundaries of technology further, and coming up behind you all through this process, there's a whole new wave of kids who want to do what you're doing. And I wonder if there's an Old West mentality here. Do you have to look over your shoulder?
No, I'm not. You see, I'm not threatened by that at all. I mean, you know, basically, you know, something like Spawn, I try to use a lot of old cinematographic tricks and use digital technology to sort of accent it, right? So more or less like the masters, Ray Harryhausen, stop-motion animator. I would try and pull a lot of character stuff like that, you know, like the elbows back and the character looking around like that. You have films like Dragonheart and Casper and Jumanji, which are just, and you know, tornado porn like Twister, where they have abused the technology, you know, unfortunately. Very similar to what happened to the 7-minute short in front of Warner Brothers cartoons. It ended up getting, that medium as an art was destroyed by Saturday morning. So, you know, it's inevitable. In Hollywood, you have wolves and sheep. You know, a lot of the wolves, they find a new technology like this, they devour. This is why you have companies like Sony and DreamWorks that are starting huge digital facilities and are courting animators very much the way they court actors. And because it's now the big thing. They know there's a lot of money to be made. I mean, the next 2 years, you're going to see like another 3 dinosaur pictures, you know. So after Jurassic, all these zoo movies came out, you know, got out of control.
Do you ever develop an affection for your creations, your characters?
Oh, yeah, entirely. I mean, you know.
And are your characters works in progress? As the shoot continues, they continue to develop and change? You snip a little, you add a little?
I think so. I mean, you know, I never fell in love with the T-1000, but I mean, I still have them around, yeah. You know what I mean? But the T-Rex was, you know, the crowning accomplishment, I think. You know, that's what changed everything. That's the first time I put a soul in the head of a creature, you know, was a T-Rex. And I guess Violator is kind of another extension of that, you know.
Which is trickier to work with, the complete animation that you built from scratch with your computer or the blend with the human actor?
Well, I mean, they're both very difficult. They both pose their own problems. You have to remember, as you had mentioned before, I mean, you know, one of the problems is dealing with characters that have to become bigger and better all the time. So you know that maybe, as opposed to trying to make something so broad and in your face, you know, some of the best ways of doing stuff that we found out making our own movie is to make sure that implication is always a part of it. You know, you look at what Spielberg did with Jaws. You know, he used a bad-looking creature, but he used a lot of implication to build suspense. Shots such as in Terminator, where, you know, I spent like you know, better part of 4 months building and animating the entire lava sequence where the character's dying in the end, and that was supposed to be the big sequence. Yet what people remember the most is one of the simplest shots, which is the head coming out of the floor. You know, so that's an example of, just because it's elaborate doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be visually that successful over something that's quite simplistic. So what I try and do with the animating of things, I try and keep the poses simple, right? And making use of compositionally of a frame. Character always leads the action, right? Camera always plays secondary to that. With actors, we explain to them, you know, Mark and I, coming from that field, we can explain to them in great length what they're dealing with. In other words, their eye lines, you know, are going to be projected at certain images. And we draw right on the monitors down on the set. And it gets to the point now where we will actually run a video tap in, so we can look through a view piece, they can see a monitor, you know, where we are, to actually see, oh yeah, there's this image that I'm acting to. You know, and that will be the future of having actors act to sort of synthetic images that don't exist at the time of shoot.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the struggle. Maybe you don't want people to notice, because when it's so seamless and it's so real, that's when you've done your best work.
Well, you wouldn't believe the lengths we go to make sure you don't see something. You know, that's exactly what happens, you know.
Well, Steve, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah,
Good
nice
luck
chatting
to you.
with you too.
We'll be right back in the program. Don't go away.